Here we go, boys. Ride down in Antigua, Guatemala, Central America. Went out with the guys from Moto Adventures, Guatemala. Headed out of town, and they immediately got us into what I call the Green Tunnel. It was non-stop. We left those cobblestone streets so quick, went through the outskirts of town, and we just made a hard right and cut right into the bushes, and the single track never stopped. I was really surprised by how great the single track was. These are actually people trails that have been here for probably 300, 400 years, and they're cut into the volcanic soil, so the soil's really, really soft here. This is where I got stuck. This is unbelievable. My back tire just buried. So, of course, I had to have one of the guys ride my bike up. That was kind of pathetic, but the rest of the time, well, it was maybe one other time. My heart rate got so high because Antigua sits at about 5,500 feet. We got up to about 6,000 feet, and I'm used to being at about 2,000. But just beautiful scenery. But this soil in Guatemala, it's so rich and loose, and Guatemala is known as the country of the eternal springtime. This is another trail. We got on this sucker, and I was like, man, this was just beat up. The water, we've had heavy rains here in Guatemala the last bit, and the ground was just, it was just so moist and saturated, and the plants were so green. Everything was just growing like crazy. The sun would be out. It looked like the rain was going to come, and it didn't come. But look at this trail. This is just unbelievable. This trail has been walked on by people for, it must be at least 300 to 400 years, maybe more. So these are ancient trails, and on the left and the right are either farms growing vegetables or they're coffee bean plantations. And you're going through this ditch, and I kept thinking, man, this is like the front lines in Ukraine or something. It's crazy. And then all of a sudden, here come the people. These are the people who use these trails. They walk to their homes on them, carry wood on their head, food, whatever, and then boom, right back into the Green Tunnel. There's a place right by here called Hobbit Tenango, and up at Hobbit Tenango, this trail actually goes there, and I kept thinking, not only is this like a front line trail, this is kind of like where the hobbits would run around so nobody could see them between the fields. But just over time, it's, the rain has kind of washed away the ground. There's another guy. We kept running into these guys all over the place. But these roots that were sticking out like that right there, these were monsters. You really had to have your momentum up. And the farms that we rode by, just lush. Not huge, not commercial, more artisanal, but just everything was so lush, and the views were so gorgeous this entire ride. Big thank you to Jose, like I said, with Moto Adventures, Guatemala, and his son, Samuel, and then his other buddy, Jose. So basically, we went for this ride, and as you can see, I'm kind of cruising here. But we got up the first hill, and Jose, the guy who owns the tour company, said, "Oh, I got a wire melting on my bike. I got to go get it fixed." So it was me, 50-plus-year-old Stanley King, riding with a couple 18-year-olds, and as you can imagine, that dynamic, they weren't going to let Grandpa beat them, and I sure wasn't going to let a couple 18-year-olds whip me. And we pushed each other all day. It was pretty humid, not super hot, but we just kept pushing. The elevation was pretty good. The traction was great, but man, I got done with the ride, and so did the 18-year-old guys, who are fantastic riders. They have a huge future ahead of them. But, man, we were just beat down. Just really hard. But, man, you got on this single track, and when it opened up, It's just gorgeous. Look at that, locals there, kids just waving. These dogs are everywhere too. You know, I just look at them and they don't do anything. They don't bite. I'm sure some of them might, but you're just cruising. You know, it's these trails are, like I said, they've been here for a long time, and they're just beautiful, and they're just set up perfect for riding dirt bikes on, and the people seem to be okay with us there, so that's nice. So I'm on my Beta 300 that I bought down here in Guatemala. It's a 22, and if you watch my channel all the time, you know I have a 23 300XC up in Las Vegas. Look at these guys. They brought me up to what they call paddock, because I know that's what Graham Jarvis and guys like that call. But these guys wanted to emulate Graham Jarvis, and these kids. I mean, I call them kids. They're men, but they are solid riders, and they were doing wheelies everywhere. They were trying to get me to do it. I usually don't do wheelies, and I started to learn and pick it up pretty quick. It was cool. So I'm not there, but I'm sure at some point I'm going to do a video on me doing wheelies like that right there. But these guys just love doing it. They just wouldn't stop. They put on this whole show. But so I was going to say, this Beta 300 versus the KTM 300XC. The KTM is about maybe 5% better. The motor's, the new one is just strong as it's crazy. Look at this little gap these guys just jumped. That scared me so much, because that went into the abyss down there, and I made it. But this Beta, for me when I bought it, was the best bike I'd ever ridden. Motor strong, chassis set up right, just a really good bike. And then I got that 300XC and just fell in love with it. But these two bikes are for me, these are the pinnacle of the game. Haven't ridden a Sherco 300 yet, but man, that KTM 300, incredible. All right, so now here, these guys said, oh, we're going to do this really slippery kind of hill climb deal. We got to ride down into it. This ground was slick as ice. It was like it had oil all over it. I've never felt ground this slippery in my life. It must have had algae growing on it. And then these guys put on the show, going up this root-infested inferno. I just call this I mean, look at that dude. He's like 18, 19 years old. He's doing hops like that. And that's big, too. That's no joke. And, again, it was so slippery. It was like being on ice. But I looked at this whole hill, and I was like, man, this has got to be the snotty, slickest, ugliest hill I've ever seen in my life. So we got done there, and then we went down this thing back into the trench, the Hobbit Trench, the front line trenches, slippery as all get up, and we cruised back down to Antigua. But I called this thing, after about 3 or 4 minutes, the water slide, because it was so steep and it was so laid in, and it just held your bike. It was so cool to slide through the bushes. Oh my God. I didn't have my goggles on right here because they were all steamed up. But once I got in here, like this part, I put them on pretty quick. And then I really got cooking down the hill. Super fun. Anyway, so again, this is in Antigua, Guatemala. The owner of Moto Adventures Guatemala, his name is Jose Rivas. Really great rider, really great guy, even though he didn't ride with us most of the day, and his son and his buddy just about killed me, but that's all right. But, man, this guy sets up a beautiful tour. He has bikes for the street. He has really nice off-road bikes that you can rent. These guys know all the top hard enduro guys from around the world. They come in, they stop here. The riding in Antigua, Guatemala, and honestly all of Guatemala is awesome. Just awesome. Well, I think this, look at this. This, again, it's the water slide. That's the only thing I can call it. It's so funny. You know, we kept cruising through this forest and going down, 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 down. I loved it. I really did. It was great. So we popped out on a road down here, And man, all of a sudden we were on that road for a little bit. Went through a village that I just couldn't even believe. It was kind of like lost in time. These guys know every road, every nook and cranny of this forest. They know all the sides here. Really cool. But they got us out down on the road, and then we rode through these villages for a little bit. All of a sudden we popped on another trail. Went through some more water slides. And I'm talking, this was like no short amount of time on these slides. This was like 45 minutes of just going down. It must have been 25-degree declines, 20 to 25 the whole time, sometimes more. And then there were roots, kind of strewn in there as well. So this wasn't quite a ride for the faint of heart with all the, little erosion rills and slipperiness and roots. But man, we really we hit it all. Super cool ride. So once we got back down to Antigua, they have this is that little village I was talking about earlier. Look at this kid in front of me. He's riding with no hands. He's just pinching his tank, riding with no hands, and then back here in the trail again. But once we got back into town, the Moto Adventure Guatemala, they have a restaurant that's right next to it called the Londoner. So we went in there, had burgers and a brewski, and I mean, just what a great time. These guys, they'll do it 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, whatever. And you can rent, like I said, you can rent, 200cc 4-stroke kind of street bikes. They have KTM 390s, brand new bikes that are beautiful, set up for dual sport for all over the country. Cool. They have Enduro bikes. They definitely have good quality stuff. But if you're thinking about going on a trip somewhere and you want to do something totally different, I mean, look at this. Cobblestone streets. This is the old Spanish colonial capital of Central America from when the Spanish were there originally. And just a gorgeous town. Absolutely gorgeous. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Hopefully you enjoyed this ride. I know Guatemala is a lot different than Montana, where I was a couple weeks ago, in Nevada, but I like to mix it up. So we're going to keep hitting it here in Guatemala. I'm going to do a few more rides with these guys and hopefully get a race in as well. Look at all those motorcycles. They're all over the place. So it's definitely a moto-centric country. Okay, guys. Well, hopefully you'll subscribe to the channel if you made it this far, and we'll see you on the next one. And if we see you down here, definitely say hi. All right, guys. Take it easy. Yeah, that was awesome, dude. That was great, man. Thank you, Jose.